Can you hear me? Thank you, I love you. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness. It's amazing to suddenly be talking about this film. I literally feel like I just finished making it.
Well, you did make it extremely quickly, and...
Oh, can you hear me though?
Can you hear me? Okay, so what we were talking about backstage...
Can you hear her? Okay,
Thank you.
we're in!
What we were talking about backstage is the fact that you had an extraordinarily short time, especially with Helen Mirren. So I was astounded to hear that you had just a few days. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, thank you so much, all of you, for coming. Really, I can't tell you how incredible it honestly is to see an audience of people actually watching this film, because I feel like I've been running all year and making it. So it's just an amazing, amazing feeling. So we had a 35-day shoot, which is 7 weeks, and I only had Helen Mirren for 16 days.
Which is insane.
Which is insane, because she was coming from one job and going right on to another, and I had all of those wonderful children. And I just thought, you know, I'm just going to run at this. I'll just be as prepared as I possibly can be for anything in my life, and just be really, really ready to give good energy every single day. Because aside from everything else and taking care of the actors and directing and obviously shooting the movie and dealing with shot choices every day that were sympathetic to the story I was trying to tell, it really, really mattered to me that there was joy. And the children bring joy. Children bring joy, as we all know. And I wanted to create an onset environment that not only for those children felt fun and fresh and adventurous, but that for the other actors, the older actors, certainly Helen and Tim, I thought to myself, well, there's really no need for me to try and find something clever to say to them as a director that they may have never heard before. I know in my life when directors have tried to do that with me, and you sort of think, are you trying something? What is going on there? But what I did want to do, and I did feel very sincere about, was offering them a completely different type of a working environment that might just startle them into feeling a different way, feeling that sense of quiet and that sense of intimacy. And I did some specific things to help with that. So our crew were really inside and they were brilliantly supportive of what I was trying to achieve. We didn't have any overhead boom microphones, which made a huge difference, because aside from anything else, when you've got young children and there's a big black pole waving above their heads, they're just going to go like that. So I could never have that happen. But also as an actor myself, my only one thing that I do find really distracting is overhead booms, because it doesn't matter how skilled that technician is, you can still see them, and it does continually move around. So everyone was radio mic'd, including the children. We had lots of hidden microphones everywhere. So it meant that just in terms of actual physical crew bodies in the room, there were much, much less people. And when I could, in the more intimate scenes, only involving 2 actors at a time, we were able to lock off the cameras and set the shot, and everybody would walk away. So there would be no camera operators standing there at all, nothing, just freestanding, rolling cameras, really giving those actors the space to just be together and to have those quite difficult conversations that some of the actors have to have. But it was amazing. The whole experience was amazing. I never wanted it to end. Everyone wanted it to continue, and I have honestly loved every single second of it. It's been an incredible experience for me.
So this is your directorial debut, and directors tell me that they're afraid to do, which is directing yourself. And so what were some of the specific challenges of that I mean, I know, this is your first time doing it, so you just went all in, but how was that experience?
I mean, I think I was so focused on everybody else and making sure that all the actors felt completely heard and supported and had the space to work in their very individual ways. They all had a really different process, and I was thrilled to discover and learn just how differently they operated, and what they needed from me was completely different. Tim needed something that was different to what Andrea needed, for example, and certainly very different to Tony. And so when it came to the first scene, and actually I took the hit, so I was directing on day one, and on the schedule was the big waiting room scene with Tim Spall and Johnny Flynn, and I looked at my first AD and I said, I can't do it to them. They will just shit themselves, I can't do it. I said, I'll take the hit, just put in something for me. So the first thing I shot was me on the phone to Toni Collette, telling her, I think you should come and bring the orange squash, great. So I took the hit, and actually it was okay, because I was so prepared, and I knew that I just had to give myself lots of choices when I got into the edit. So I just had to keep experimenting. Let me just try something else. Let me just back myself up, try something else. And I was able to get relatively efficient at it. However, that doesn't mean I actually knew that what I had done was any good. So when I got into the edit, I was like, oh my God, why did I pull that face? That is so weird. Why wouldn't someone have told me that? Okay, we're not going to use that bit. So, and I was able to be very ruthless about making sure that all the performances had their place. But that was certainly the kind of wild card component that I think, you can never possibly know, I think, what that's going to feel like to be directing yourself. And luckily I was in a space with actors who are all so lovely. I can't tell you how wonderful they all are, such beautiful, special, kind people. And I was definitely in a room with people whom I could turn to and say, did you think that was any good, that tape I just did? Because if, I'm happy to do it again. So I could check in with them here and there as well. Yeah.
I want to go back to the beginning a little bit and just talk about the script, which was written by your son, Joe Anders, who, when I checked, is, I think, just 21 years old.
My son is only 21, and he started writing this when he was only 19, and he's always written. He's always been a very talented writer. It was his passion at school, and when he had finished school, he really wasn't sure what to do next in his life, and he was slightly grappling, I think, with the idea of declaring that he, first of all, maybe wanted to go into acting. He is actually also an actor, but he was very passionate about writing. He said, I need to learn it, I want to learn it properly, and he applied to a really prestigious course at the National Film and Television School in London. He'd written a short film and he got a place on this very heavily coveted course, and he was like, Mama, they've accepted me, oh my God. And when he was there, he was encouraged by a really fantastic tutor she said, Joe, just write what you know. And he's like 19 years old, I've gone through COVID, etc. What else is there in my life? And the one thing that has been very significant for Joe was the loss of his grandmother, my mum. She passed away in 2017, and he was a teenager at the time. And his memories of that time are of this large family all coming together and actually giving my mother quite an extraordinary passing. But just the geographical possibility of us all being in the one place was extraordinary. So he took that as a backdrop, this big family all coming together, and then he invented a story out of that. And he did it very steadily, and he handed it to me when he had almost finished it, and he said, I've written this script, and it's probably not very good, but you can read it if you want. Will you read it? And I was like, yes, darling, I'd absolutely love to read it, knowing that he definitely would have written something interesting. But what I didn't know was that he was very clearly a screenwriter, and he had written something that was so real and so sophisticated and graceful and warm. That was the thing. He had created a story not about someone dying, but about a family. Yeah. And it really this very clever thing of somehow making a story about such a seismic loss and giving it to an audience and somehow making us laugh as well as cry. I mean, that's a very hard thing even for a really sophisticated, experienced screenwriter to do. And I've read, as you would imagine, many hundreds of screenplays in my career. And I turned to him and I said, well, we are gonna make this into a film. And he's like, what? No, Mum, no, Mum. I was like, that's not a thing. No, it's not, no, don't do that thing. And I was like, what thing? We really are. I said, finish it, and then we're going to talk about it some more. And he developed it some more and obviously went through various different drafts, as any writer would do. He was brilliant at taking notes and adapting to that. And then when it was ready, I said to him, okay, we are going to find a home for it. And amazingly, Netflix just went, yes. They are so good, I will say, actually, Netflix at supporting emerging talent and first-time heads of department as well as directors, etc. And it went from there. And during that process, I started to talk to the actors. So Andrea Riseborough read the same version that still had 20 pages to go, and she said yes, even on reading that version. And at that point, I wasn't going to direct it. I was going to produce it, and I was going to play Julia. And as the process got more and more exciting and intense for me, I just felt we couldn't let it go. And I said to Jo, I said, look, we could just start going out to directors right now, and we could make a wonderful list of extraordinary people we admire. I said, but as soon as we do that, it's not ours anymore. We are giving it to them, which is exactly the right thing. That's what happens. And I said to him, I really, really think I would like to direct it, and I feel like I could. And it just went from there. And all of our wish list actors, all said yes. And it was just extraordinary. And the process of casting the children was utterly wonderful, because of course that was just playing and playing and playing. And all the children actually, because they range in age from, well, a baby, the 2 5-year-olds, all the way up to Sydney, who is 16. But I thought, well, how am I supposed to explain to 2 5-year-olds, one of whom has special needs? How am I supposed to say, oh, this is Ella, this is Flora, she plays Ella, this is James, he plays Alfred. I thought, I can't, that's too many names. So I said to all of the children, we're just going to call each other in character names. And that's what they did. And they were only ever in character all the time, which meant that I could secretly roll cameras when they were just playing and being, and they were basically always in character.
Method acting for children.
Well, they just loved it, and they just thought that was that person's name. And it was actually so strange at the end when Tybalt rapped, and he turned to our crew and he said, I'm actually called Elias. And they were like, no, you're Tybalt, you're Tibby. It was really very sweet. And they called all of us in our character names as well. I was Mummy Kate. And that was also brilliant because Benji, whose name was amazingly Ben, and it was great because he would call me Mummy Kate on camera, and in the edit I could very easily just snip out the Kate part, and he was calling me Mummy. And that was rather wonderful, and he brought so much magic to us because he's just this, oh my gosh, that child is so beautiful, his eyes are extraordinary, and he was just learning Makaton, which is the Down syndrome signing, and his parents were learning it with him. And as soon as I saw them doing it, I had never seen, has anyone here ever seen Makaton signing? I had never seen it. It's so beautiful, it's extraordinary. And I thought, we have to have that in our film. So we had a Makaton expert who was there every day to be a communicator for him. But then at the end, I don't know if you noticed, but all the children in Away in a Manger, they're actually signing in Makaton, and they were all so proud to learn it, and it was just gorgeous. So the whole experience was incredibly supportive. All these children were fully supported by the actors, and in turn we were all really taking care of everybody. And there was me being as fearless a leader as I could possibly be. Yeah. Because when you're an actor, you have all these other things and people you can hide behind. new director, you're fucked. You can't. So I'm really grateful, you've no idea.
So moving about this film is obviously, I feel like everybody of course goes through something like this at some point in their lives, but we don't really prepare or talk about it. And this film doesn't shy away from that. And it sits with what's coming, and we don't kind of fade to black or just skip the parts that are hard. Were there times where on set it became quite emotional for everybody? And if so, how did you manage that?
I mean, yes, you know, in our rehearsal process, which was one very solid week of shared time, all of us actors actually, we rehearsed as much as we could in the house where I was staying. I don't live in London, we filmed in London, I had this really nice rental house, and so I would just cook and we would chat, and so it just felt very open. I felt I needed to really start building the trust amongst all of us from a very early point. And so those very private stories about personal loss were shared. And I think when you open up a conversation and feel that you can let yourself be vulnerable enough to express your own personal story, something quite bonding takes place. So that happened very immediately, and what it did mean was that when there were some of the trickier days, even for me, very hard days, we did all have each other, and we also had the crew. It was a small crew of people who I have largely known for a very long time and worked with as an actor on many different projects. Our cinematographer Alvin Kutcher I've worked with 3 times as an actress, and quite intensely. He did the Steve Jobs film, and he also did the Regime 6-part show I did for HBO. So I spent 6 solid months with him on the Regime, and all his camera crew. So those people were present, and they also had their stories. So for everybody, not just the actors, there were moments when Max, our focus puller, would have to wipe his eyes and get recomposed for the next take. And for me, the scenes with Tim and Helen, because of course when I lost my mother, I didn't witness any of the conversations between my parents in those final moments. They were private moments that they shared. And suddenly I felt like I was there. And so I would actually just kind of hide behind Max, a focus puller in the corner, and almost just sort of quietly sob on his back whilst he was working. And I would gently try and tenderly direct from the corner and keep at a distance, because I never wanted to disrupt these very sacred little spaces that the actors would sometimes create for themselves. You know, you don't want to sort of break that spell. But yes, there were definitely days when it was tough. However, we had Tony Collette, who brings the levity. and I think that was something that Jo did with the script so brilliantly, is that I myself have a real dislike of false sentiment, you know, and I think, you know, when I can sniff it as an actor, I'm like, oh, okay, no, don't go near that, okay, let's not let it be syrupy or saccharine. I really don't like it. So I loved the fact that in my son's script, it never fell into that. The words just didn't take us in those directions at all. And I was ruthless with myself when we were shooting, never to sit on the emotion, which is why, for example, you know, after that wonderful scene when Connor reads his mother the poem, right the next moment you cut to Tony Collette playing on a bloody ocarina whistle, looking like a carnival, and you can't help but laugh. And that's the other thing too, is that when you do lose a loved one in the way that this family does, there actually are oddly humorous moments that happen, that get forgotten about very quickly. And I love the fact that we were able to bring all of that into the story and to really keep those things alive, because we didn't want it to feel like a film about death and grief and loss. We wanted it to feel like a story, which I really think it does, about a family who are pulled closer together because of the love that consummate matriarch had for all of them. And you just know that they're going is important to talk a bit about those things, because I think, we're not very good, I think, at talking about grief and loss at all, and so I do love the fact that we were able to do some of that with this film.